Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at CoreWeave. It is time for another update, and today we will of course be discussing how we have managed to still hold the relevant levels of support in the small time frame, but what we need to see reach, what we need to see developed to still be able to look for continuation to higher prices, and what to expect in case of a failure. But before we get there, we will be going quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new to provide the full context. And on this chart we have been tracking ever since we started covering it, this idea of a 1-2 setup. Yeah, we have provided this area of support during our first video when we were still in the first phases of this correction. We were probably somewhere around this area, and we have been looking to build a 3-wave pattern into this support zone. That has been achieved. We have even been looking for a potential extension directly into a wave 3 to the upside, but since we failed to hold internal levels of support, as we were pushing higher within this movement to the upside, we started preferring rather a reset of this wave 2 correction, and once again, we built the expectation on a larger degree. Yeah, we built a larger 3-wave move to the downside, and we are once again looking for a potential bottom, but even now, we have been disappointed by only creating an initial 3-wave move to the upside, which isn't giving us any strong indication that we would succeed in forming a wave 3 from current prices, and a reset within this wave 2 might be needed once more. Now, as long as we hold this area of support down to $48.5, we can still look for continuation in a larger wave 3 to the upside. Yeah, the probabilities remain intact, but with a sustained break below this last level, we need to be prepared for something more bearish to be going on, such as even extensions to new all-time lows. Now, within this structure, we have been focusing on the relevant levels of resistance that we wanted to see broken for a signal that a more substantial bottom would have been in place, and we couldn't do that without getting above $127, which wasn't the case. We were in fact strongly preferring to top here within the 61.8% retracement region at around $110, as we have failed to create here an initial 5-wave move to the upside, and within this structure, within this follow-up as a wave C, it would have been strongly suggested that yes, we would likely struggle to get past that level. Now, since we have a 3-wave pattern already in place, we need nothing more for this to be considered a complete wave B correction. Yeah, it is fully prepared to extend in a supposed wave C to the downside, and yes, this could still work out, technically part of the larger wave 2 in white within something like a WXY pattern. Although I have to say, with an extension to lower prices within such a structure, I worry for the overall reliability of this chart. I am inclined to believe that with a direct breakdown from the current levels, within another wave to the downside, we would see very likely even a break of the last level of support. So ideally, we would still manage to form at least a reset within this as a wave B in orange, even if we are to get to lower prices afterwards within a wave 2, as without such an extension, based on the current internal developments in this area, I would be inclined to believe that we would be looking right now at the potential double 1-2-1-2 setup that could very easily allow us to look for much deeper prices, possibly managing to get to the last level of support even within an internal wave 3 to the downside from current prices alone, whereas afterwards we would still be looking for a couple of additional lows to complete our structure, which would lead us to believe that the larger structure could once again extend even lower. Now, without getting too much into a potential future, let's also bring out the bullish scenario on this chart, where we have been focusing on this yellow interpretation for a potential 1-2 setup, part of a leading diagonal, yeah, a wave 1, part of the larger wave 3 to the upside, which is still a perfectly acceptable scenario. And before we get into the details, I wanted to briefly mention that if you enjoyed the video so far, leaving a like would be greatly appreciated, And if you want to keep up to date with everything that we provide, which is a lot of videos, yeah, multiple every single day, subscribing might not be a bad idea. And if you want to support us directly, you can check out our channel membership, and as a thank you for any of these actions really, I would like to invite you to sign up to our channel newsletter where you get access to our monthly top picks where we identify for you high quality structures with actionable trade setups, yeah? Where we have clear levels of support identified, where we have clear levels of invalidation, where we know that some structures have become much less likely to actually succeed in following through within their expectations. Now, getting back to the chart. Here, within this wave 2 in yellow, all we required was to not get a sustained break below $72.4. This so far is still holding. We have been expecting with high probabilities an extension, a reset of the wave 2 since we bottomed here initially in this structure, as we did identify a 5-wave move to the downside, and it was actually strongly preferred for us that after a 3-wave correction we would get at least another 5-wave move to the downside. And we highlighted ever since we provided this idea that it would still be able to hold the relevant levels of support while building this expectation, and this is actually what I'm considering, yeah? I am not looking here at a sustained break within this as a wave 2. It's definitely not ideal to break the area of support, especially more than once, but it was not a sustained break in either scenario, so technically we could still be looking for a wave 3 to form from the current prices, or who knows, potentially just a reset within this wave B in orange is also a perfectly acceptable outcome of a continuation to higher prices that could allow us to look for the overall wave 2 to still manage to hold the larger area of support even in the case of a reset, yeah? Now, to be honest, this is not looking ideal even now because from the current prices, from the current low we have here in this wave 2, we have once again started with a 3-wave move to the upside. This is, once again, not providing a high probability indication that we would be looking at an impulse to form within this structure. Sure, we have formed afterwards an extension to higher prices in what seems to be a leading diagonal in this movement to the upside, but even this is not a high probability structure. We are looking at an A, B, C pattern overall, where once again we can still look for continuation to higher prices, and if we are to consider the overall structure in yellow, we would expect within a wave 3 to form an A, B, C structure, but this is not going to provide us a high probability indication that it will succeed in forming higher prices, that it will succeed in breaking the internal levels of resistance which we will provide right now. So, in this idea of an orange interpretation, we are looking at a potential double 1-2-1-2 setup where I would need to see the internal levels of support for a follow-up wave 2, yeah, for the smaller degree wave 2, broken before I can look for something potentially more bullish. And currently we still need this large area of resistance for a potential reset of the wave B, but we can shift it to the right as we do not currently need it. And within this smaller time frame, I'm focusing here on this idea of a potential 1-2 setup in orange where I'm watching the area of resistance at the levels between $81.7 all the way up to $95.4. Unless we manage to break the last level of resistance, there is still a strong indication that lower prices would still come. And there is still substantial pressure that we would instead be building something like an ABC structure, which, whoops, it's already in place within a wave 2 correction before looking for an overall continuation to lower prices. And the only positive aspect we have within this overall pattern in terms of a potential opportunity is that we are deep within the area of support. Yeah, we are currently at $81, where we know that with a break below the last swing low at, let's say, $70.4, we would be looking for a failure of the yellow interpretation and for the orange scenario to take charge. Now, for a recap, we are going to focus on the smaller time frame. Within this structure, we would like to see the internal area of resistance here up to $95.4 broken, and it might be actually best to track this interpretation in blue just to have more clarity. And once again, the first level we want to see broken is the $95.4 is $95.4. If we manage to get through that, we will have a better indication that this structure would not manage to extend the lower prices, especially within the idea of an impulse, as technically this could still work out as a larger wave 1 within an ABC structure part of a diagonal structure, which would allow even higher areas of resistance. But then I would focus on the next signal level to be anyway this swing high, yeah? The previous wave B top we had within this structure at around $103.5. If we manage to get even through this, well, we would invalidate completely this idea of an internal 1-2 setup, a short 1-2 setup, and we would even break here the larger area of resistance as well we would have for a potential larger 1-2 setup. Yeah, so we want to see $103.5 broken for the next level of indication, for the next signal. Now, in terms of support, if we break below the last yellow level, it is already indicating that this structure is going to fail. We wouldn't want to see a third break now, would we? And as long as it holds, we can still look for one of two scenarios to actually occur, which is either a larger breakout outside of the orange interpretation, ideally in a wave 3, possibly in a wave C, or within the orange interpretation, a reset of the wave B top. Yeah, this would instead be a larger A, B, C pattern in the orange interpretation, where we would still be able to look afterwards for an overall reset within this wave 2. Now, unfortunately, on this chart, outside of the white support zone, which is still in place, yeah? We always recommend to trade the levels, not the count, and technically we are still within the area of support, and with proper positioning, with proper sizing, it can still make for a potentially interesting trade setup, although here it might be of worth to consider the overall company situation, which does have some depth, yeah, not ideal, still has a very short history on the market, and yeah, the associated risk. So this is where sizing is essential. This is where the risk management comes into play. But for now, unfortunately, we do not have an internal trade setup, but if we manage to build here the yellow scenario and have an initial 5-wave move to the upside, we would then be able to look for a larger 1-2 setup that could once again prove interesting. Now, if you want to use this yellow area of support, it is your choice, and it is within the larger white support zone, but the yellow structure in particular is not a high probability structure, as it only has a 3-wave pattern, which can be interpreted as a top within other interpretations, within other structures. Yeah, something like this orange wave B that could have a top within this movement. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoy our content and want to support us directly, check out our channel membership. And other than that, let me know what else you would like me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.